Hello, everyone, and welcome to Struggle Interrupted. My name is Corey Brindley. You may know me as DJ Hedgehog on Lackey, or from playing in local tournaments. Today's show, we're going to have some special guests. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I really enjoy this game. Really happy to be streaming here with you guys. Excited to make new content and hopefully draw some new players into the game, raise some awareness about new cards, and just how much fun we have playing this game. So, with me first is my co-host, Jeff Haar. Jeff, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
So, Jeff, you're from Columbus. Have you seen any good decks lately?
Not from you.
That's fair. I like it. So, what about fun games? Anything interesting that you've seen on Lackey since we last spoke?
There was that one game we played with, like, everyone was playing combat and everyone was burning everyone's vampires. That was pretty weird.
Yeah, it's always
that's for another day.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun is when everyone's just beating each other into oblivion. So I know I ended up in torpor a lot. So always a good game, right?
It's funny when you're in torpor, yes.
When I'm in torpor, not like
yes,
generally.
Specifically you.
Well, I appreciate it. So today, I have a special guest all the way from Europe, right? That's why we're doing this at 1 o'clock, so we can get some special time in here. I'm going to switch over here. This is Bram von Stappen. Bram, how you doing today?
I'm fine. Thanks.
Excellent. So where in Europe are you from exactly?
Belgium, if that rings any bell.
The country does. So is there like a city specifically, like or a larger hub that we might know of?
Well, Antwerp, which is basically like everything is like small here, so it's like 60k from Brussels, which is Belgium's capital.
Sure. So it's pretty easy to get around the EU as far as like accessibility to public transit, like trains, buses, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have anything local that you play, like any local play groups?
Well, there is a couple of people in Brussels. There is a few in Ghent, like a bit all spread over Belgium, and it's pretty hard to like get a table of 4 or 5 people together actually. So last year, I don't think last year happened like once a month or something. Maybe not even that. So it's despite there's some players, some new players, it's still pretty hard to get a regular table.
I mean, so are you able to pull in at least 10 people for tournaments? Like, how often do you guys have tournament play?
Just because the scene is like so small, and the distances are pretty small. We have like people coming over from the Netherlands or Germany, sometimes France. So we get like 10, 12. Good tournament is like 15, 16 people.
Gotcha. So I know there's a decent playgroup in Paris, right? And what's the distance like if I were to travel by train? How much time would that take?
Like by car is about 4 hours, I guess.
Okay.
So we don't see a lot. For us, it's like huge 4 hours. So we don't see a lot of Parisians in Antwerp or Brussels or something. But for example, there is Bonn in Germany, which is like 2 hours and a half or something. That's a regular trip for me.
Nice. Well, that seems pretty reasonable.
Netherlands is like 1 hour 45, 2 hours or something. So that's stuff we do with a few people in the car and then go there.
Jeff and I had someone in our play group from the Netherlands. His name was Patrick. He was a very distinct player. I think he brought a lot of the European flavor over in his deck building style and like a lot more conversation heavy in the way he played.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, Patrick Van Der Rees, yeah. I haven't seen him in forever, but
I think we played different eras.
probably.
I think he's still over here somewhere.
Just got a shout out from our stream, and it's Eric from Sweden said hey to Bram. I don't know if you're familiar with Eric, but his wave is perfect. So when you go to a tournament, Bram, what are some things that you expect to see as far as like popular decks, or is there anything you prepare for specifically?
Nope. I have a very hard time predicting any meta. I guess what you see is some standard decks, tier A decks, and then there's a few people here that like kind of creative deck building. So those are always like surprising, and you cannot really anticipate on them, I think.
Anything specifically like stand out to you as being necessarily creative or fun that you've seen from other players?
Well, there is like one Dutch guy, Jeroen. He has Jeroen van Oort. I don't know if he had a couple of decks on Secret Library, but so did I. But yeah, that's a problem at the moment. He always has like really funny stuff, and he's like really good in like disturbing the balance at the table and then take advantage of it somehow. There is Martin Schumacher, who's like a really good player, and he made some. I mean, he basically came up with the Sibel deck, and he has a few other decks that are like the Saulot wall deck. That's like his. I think he basically put them on the map. But he plays them like it's a bit German, I guess, like having a lot of control, and it's in a way it's a bit typical. And I see one of his vampires, and it's obvious what it's gonna be. There's usually not too many surprises. And then we have, for example, Emiliano Imeroni. He's like an Italian guy, but he's been living in Belgium for a really long time, and he's the one that created, if I'm not mistaken, like the Nefandus Trap Molotov cocktail deck. True. I think he was the first one to play it, and he made Maris Ghouls, like Maris trick combined with Weenie, Tsimitze, and Wargles. So those are people that I really admire for their deck building capacities and well, their level of playing the game. Like,
yeah, I think that's important for any competitive game, or having those people that you look for who are kind of bringing you up, forcing you to either build better or play better and make those leaps, in play. Yeah. So going on to our first topic here, Bram, one thing that I know you from specifically would be Lackey, and you go by the handle of Gotcha.
Yeah.
And when I see Gotcha at a table, I know I will see Asher tablets. There's a guarantee the Asher tablets are coming out of you, for the most part, right? I'm not saying exclusively. And I know it's a hot button topic, so I want to avoid emotion here and just kind of talk nuts and bolts. And I know Jeff and I have kicked this around a lot. So having an outside idea of, the good, the bad, the ugly of Asher tablets, and then kind of understanding your view and maybe your community's view on their inclusion in the game. So I guess first and foremost, my question is, what's your experience when it comes to deck building and playing with Asher tablets?
I think for me, Asher allows me to build a lot of decks that otherwise wouldn't be viable. They wouldn't exist I mean, some cards are like really crappy, I think, in Vites, and I like to take like old cards or like niche cards that nobody plays or in very limited amounts, and I try to like put them together in larger amounts and recycle them with Ashur and have a couple of permanents in play or something, and so that I can make like not really powerful cards still work, something like that. Don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. So I'm just guessing by what you're saying here, your overall feeling on Asher's and the power level and balance is more so to help decks that facilitate decks that may not exist without it.
Yes.
May I?
Yeah, go for it, Jeff. What are your feelings on Asher?
Have you ever played? There's a game called Dominion. It's like a card game. You played that? Yeah, I feel like to an extent, Asher Tablets kind of turns Vitas a little bit into like a Dominion sort of thing, where you're creating your, well, maybe more so liquidation plus Ashers. I guess my point is maybe a little moot.
Yeah, just real quick, and just before you continue, Jeff. But if you look to the right of the screen here, and I know you guys can see it too, important is the fact that a lot of these things work together. So Asher Tablets in a vacuum, isn't so terrible, and to Bram's point, helps facilitate decks that may not exist. But when you start to add in these other pieces, is when you start to get to the higher echelons of power level, and I think that's what you're talking about, Jeff, right?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I think that the point I was making is still somewhat valid. That Asher's Tablets allows you some control over constructing your deck mid-game by what you choose to recur or what you choose not to, and that becomes extremely apparent when you combine it with liquidation.
No, that makes sense. So, Bram, what do you think about like the combination of liquidation, the multiple master phases? If you get to 3 master phases, you start dumping your deck, and then you have that total control over what you put in your deck. Does that change your feelings on it at all, or are you still of the mind that that's just kind of a function of the game?
Well, for me, it's just part of the game. And the thing is, we have some complaints, or some people are complaining about Ashur liquidation thingy here in Europe too. But I'm not sure if I'm seeing the same screen. I guess so. There's like 4 vampires that like make you have an additional massive phase action, and then there is a Parthenon and Rumors of Gehenna, and then you can get up to a couple of master phases a turn, but in a way you're like very limited to what you can play. I know some people play a Nefandus liquidation Ashur deck, but if somebody else plays Parthenon 2, you're basically kind of fucked. So I think playing Ashur liquidations is pretty strong, but it also like it also narrows a lot of possibilities. I mean, a lot of your cards are master cards, going to be master cards, and you have to do something in your minion phase. So I get it's what some people are saying, that it kind of makes the game less interactive or something. If you use Ashur liquidation like that, I get it. But the way I use it a lot is just like I play like a couple of master cards, not a lot, and then use like 6 or 9 Ashurs. So basically it's my main master, and that is exactly the opposite, because it allows me to play like more minion cards. And in some of the decks that I build, I cycle so many minion cards that without Ashur Tablets, the deck wouldn't work, because I would just run out of it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and in my mind, that's what it would be used for. But I want to touch on something specifically that you mentioned there, Bram, and this is for you, Jeff. I think one of your biggest complaints is about the interactivity of the master phase specifically, or I'm sorry, in general, but specifically the Asher Tablet liquidation. Do you want to just kind of touch on that for a second?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to me, there's the master phase is basically just you play your cards and they happen. There's sudden reversal and wash, but I don't know that any decks are running those in large numbers. So for the most part, you're just playing your cards. So it's kind of skipping the checks and balances that are kind of the foundation of the game, where if you do things, you run the risk of somebody stopping you. So there's a back and forth there, and I don't really see that in the master phase. So that's something that concerns me to an extent. And then obviously again, it becomes more pronounced when you have 3 master phases.
I get that, Bram. What do you think? Do you think it's a problem where we're essentially, when I think of Jihad or Vampire, I think of the struggle to keep your minions having blood and having your pool stay. As the game goes on, there's this attrition that everything continues to go down. And when I look at the multiple master phase decks, they tend to stay on the same level and are really only threatened by a couple things. So what do you think about like the interactivity when it comes to the specifically abuse, but even when you play them in a less abusive manner?
Yeah, again, for me, a lot of the decks work because of Asher, because my decks are sometimes too card intense. In the other cases, like if you play like Tibel Girls, the Stealth Bleed, you just rely on drawing 1, maybe 2 stealth cards, possibly a modifier. But the thing is, that amount of master cards, it's such a big part of your deck that sometimes you can't go forward because you don't draw the stealth or whatever. You draw, you play a couple of Majesty, so in a way you're like more vulnerable. So I think Asher Liquidation is strong, and on some tables, if you play that deck, people won't have an answer. On the other hand, if there's like a we need them in your back, you're gonna have a hard time surviving. Even if you influence a bell, draw a Parthenon, still it's gonna be. Chances are very real you're not surviving that, I think. So it's a strategy. I mean, you have like the Ravnos Clown car. If there is no intercept next to you, then you just breed and breed and breed and breed, and then you overrun the table. Is that a problem? I don't know. For me, it's part of the game, and it's part of the gamble you take when you pick a deck.
Right, and I would say that the clown car type deck, it goes through the checks and balances or the interactivity, because people blocking is much more common than somebody having a sudden.
Yeah, but I mean, lately there is like a lot of combat decks everywhere. I saw a lot of the East also. I mean, also one basically with a non-anime combat. So if you're facing that with Sibel, it's pretty much game over. If you go sit next to a top dog, it's the only thing you can do is not influence your umpire. So I know it's strong, and you can do Sibel, Axinia, and whatever. Me and Martin, we built like, I don't know, I think I have like 40 different versions of Sibel decks. Doing the weirdest shit from combat till the bleed and bleed within a circle and whatever. And it's, I mean, it's strong, but it's far from unbeatable, or I don't think it's overpowered. It's a very strong deck. Like Weenie Animalism used to be a very strong deck a couple of years ago, and now it kind of like disappeared a bit, I think.
I don't think Weenie Animalism is has, maybe it was just like a trend, but I think it's still just as good. I don't think anything's come to really deal with it other than Combat Ends, right? You know, just, but to your point, you know, I played my version of the multiple master phase deck, which was Group 1, Group 2, and I played that at Origins, so like pre-North American Championship. And my prey, Darby, was playing Tup Dogs. And, you know, there's really not much that you can do at that point. I mean, he's going to continue to make minions. He's going to come back, and there's no way to survive. The Majesty's not going to save your life, even if you have it. And then he's got Ag Damage or in Torpor, and he's probably turning you into a gargoyle or whatever that action is. I always forget. It's just so niche. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid point. But at the same time, I stopped bringing up minions and just continued to churn out pool in an effort to spite Darby and make sure that he wasn't able to get table sweeps. Because I don't want to see him in the finals, right? I want to make sure he does not get gets as few victory points as possible, so that later in the day I don't have to play him again. But yeah, I get you. So I mean, I guess, and that, we can kind of circle back to, you know, you said you had 40 Sibel decks, which is a huge number, and it sounds to me like you're already attempting this. But if you were to try and play Ashers and put it at that, you know, you said A tier, let's say S tier, something even better. You know, what do we do to really break that card, and what's the best deck to take all comers, to beat all other decks, essentially?
May I?
Yeah, go for it, Jeff. What do you got?
First off, I would say that much like, is it Bram or is it Bram?
You can choose.
Okay, it's my call. Dealer's choice. Like Bram was saying, no deck in V-Test is perfect. No deck guarantees victory. The Sibel Master Phase deck may possibly be the strongest deck out there. I'm not saying that it is, but it may be. But just because you play it doesn't mean you're going to win. So I don't think there's any such thing as the perfect deck that will guarantee you victory.
Well, we kind of talked about it last time, right, Jeff? That the combat deck in the EC, he seemed to be playing that as an effort to deal with the meta that was going to be heavy with the girls' decks. You know, so there are going to be trials and tribulations, but how do you position yourself best to win? And that's by playing the best possible deck. I mean, I guess that's my point, is like,
Sure.
What percentage-wise, I'm going to win most tables.
Sure, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But you use the phrase to take on all comers.
Sure.
And that's, I suppose, where I have objection.
You know I'm all about hyperbole, Jeff.
Fair enough.
Bram, I'm sorry, what were you saying? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was rather thinking about like countering Asher decks, and then if you see the amount of Legionnaires lately being played, and access to Trachomancy, it's a very easy way to like completely shut down an Asher deck, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. If I am playing those disciplines, I'm playing Trochomancy over the other card that gives you bonus bleed for cards on the Ash Heap. I can't remember. I'm terrible with card names.
And how many games you had that, like, if you're thinking like, if my prey would have been my predator and vice versa, I would have like had a game win on this table, and just because of positioning, you don't. So it's the same with Trochomancy, it's the same with Sibel. And I think if people are like, and I had the same opinion with Pentix. I was not for changing the card text of Pentix version. I think people should get like just more creative. I think that's the point. For me, it's the point. If you become less obvious if you can like. I like playing decks that appear to do. People see a vampire, they think, oh, it's going to be that, and then it's something completely different. If you have like the aspect of surprise, if people do not know what to expect, that's like a huge advantage for me. So that's a bit how I try to build, and I guess my play style. And then I'm gonna be bold. The guy winning with Sibel, with Nana and Nagila Otso. I mean, it's probably one of the people you can give any deck to, and he probably would have ended at the same position, or if not very close to it. He's just like a super good player, and he has a lot of decks without Ashur too, and I think the results wouldn't have been much difference. It's not his first EC final or whatever. I mean, you can count the numbers and check his decks. I think a lot of I think it's about people, about good players basically.
Well, that makes sense, and I kind of want to tie that back into what we were saying earlier, which is that I feel like playing in at least in our side of the world with the people we do, and playing in Europe, I feel like there's a great deal, a lot more dealing happening at the table, and being able to discuss with other people at the table. Like for example, what I see a lot of from European players on Lackey is asking me if they can take my Montreal. I can count the times that I've asked. I just take Montreal. I just go do that. I don't ask questions. For me, I'm like, hey, I want that. I'm going to go take it. And I think about how that's going to pan out. Are they going to block? Here's what my reaction is. Or am I going to move stealth? Like, there's always that ulterior motive, but it's never a mother may I, if you're familiar with that phrase.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you...
Well, I think in some situations you don't have a... whether you talk or whether you're lost, and well, you can choose. But yeah, I guess a lot of people, including me, try to make a deal somehow that seems favorable for both parties. And yeah,
I mean, I would say that in some cases, talking about what you want to do could be right, or it could be wrong, and in other cases, just doing it could be right or wrong. I think when you get in the mindset that you have to do one or the other, that's a bad player, in my opinion. When you're not looking at the situation and determining what's best for you right now, to get in the mindset that I have to ask if I want Montreal, or to have the mindset where I shouldn't ever ask.
See, I mean, in the context of the game yesterday, the individual, I was his predator, and he was playing combat, and I was playing no combat cards in my deck, period. If he wants Montreal, chances are I'm not going to block, and the secondary option is that I do block, and he puts me down. I mean, I guess in my mind, threatening would have worked, but I'm taking Montreal, and if you block, I'm going to put you in torpor. Like, that threat from him had more value than trying to deal with me, because I want to oust him. So is Montreal going to help me towards that goal? I mean, and I get what you're saying. It's certainly situational, right? You can't apply the same logic to everything, but
well, I was in that game, and you noticed, as my nature, I immediately made fun of him for what he was doing.
That's fair. So I'm going to put the question back out there to you, Bram, and then Jeff, I'd like to hear from you as well. But I guess the best question, or best way to put it, is what is the best Ashur Tablets deck, right, out there? What is, if I wanted to sit down and play the best A tier Ashur Tablets deck, what do you think that is?
I'm pretty much still figuring it out, I guess.
Always a student, right?
Well, I think in a way maybe the most steady version is the Sibel Nana, yeah, Girls Bleed with probably with a Lutz and a Rafael de Corazon and Axinia as defense, and like I like Martin Schumacher's version, which didn't have a lot of crypt acceleration, like maybe two info highway or something. And lately, a lot of people have been playing it with Zilla, which I get, but I'm not. That's not my style to play it that way, because then it's like becomes faster. The bullet mark on your head is probably even bigger, and if you have like a fast stick behind you, the chances of dying are even bigger, I think. So I would go for a basic Sibel bleed deck with Axinia and a inner circle backup, and probably because of minion face cards being or like minion cards, you have a small number of them. I would go for Into Thin Air Elder Impersonation, which are, if you bleed at 3 stealth, 2-3 stealth with a block denial, then it becomes hard to. Then it's just dedicated wall decks that are able to block, I think.
Yeah, it was my favorite Jeffism was 3 stealth and a block fails. You're pretty much by anything, you know? Like, if you're generating more than 3 intercept on 2 minions, that's a lot.
Yeah. I remember, like, I think last year, I had, like, a final with Martin Schumacher sitting in front of me playing Sibel. And I played Matsunta, big cat, punchy guys, wall deck. And I was pretty proud of that game. Should I tell or?
Yeah, go for it. Tell us about it.
So it was like Martin Schumacher playing Sibel in front. He was top seed, so he picked the spot in front of me because he knew I couldn't bring enough pressure to like kill him even closely. And then in front of him was a Winnie Presence who went really fast on Mari's deck, some politics I think, and a bit wallish. And there was a gargoyle behind me. So the Winnie Presence killed like Mari's pretty fast, and then was getting low on pool because of Martin's bleed, and I decided to like one turn like block like every action of the gargoyle and basically kill his minions, so the Winnie Presence would be able to oust him also. And I was higher seed than the Winnie Presence. So he killed the gargoyle, then died to Martin, but he still had more VPs than Martin. So Martin still had to like move on me to like win the tournament, and he did. And he wasn't able to like. I think I had a bowl or something, or a Mr. Winthrop, and I didn't play a single of my Ashurs because I played Ashurs in those decks too, in that deck too. But I mean, he didn't get through. It was a dedicated wall, and I just punched him, and then he died. So, but if I don't back oust, I didn't kill him, but I killed his minions. If I don't back oust the gargoyle, Martin takes another VP, maybe the gargoyle, and he just sits there and does nothing, and you don't win. So I think that was one of my good games, I think, and that's how you like play against Sibel in a way. I mean, you try to like against any deck, you just see what's possible and how you can like put it to your favor.
Yeah, I like the concept. I mean, you're the subtext that I'm hearing is that Sibel deck being master heavy can have some flat minion phases and can be prone to just sitting there playing liquidation and stuff. waiting for the right time, and you force the issue knowing that that's not what the deck is best at.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So Jeff, we just heard, I think Sibel as being the top Asher deck. What are your thoughts? What do you think the best way to kind of abuse that and put yourself in the best position to win? What would you play?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I just had a thought here that's completely not going to answer your question, but
Thanks.
Since I'm a stupid and selfish person, I don't like in general the multiple master phase decks. But like if we just took one of these pictures and like say it took Nana and like turned her into a Ravnos, I would probably just be on board, because really all I want to do is just win with Ravnos. I don't really care about anything else.
Some clan loyalty is what I'm hearing.
I guess, I don't know.
Well,
but yeah, I don't know. I think probably the best versions of the deck are. It's not something I've played with much. It just doesn't really interest me, and I'm stubborn like that. But I think the stealth bleed variants are essentially where you have to go, because that's effective without having a lot of cards. So you play a bleed modifier, bleed action, and maybe 1 or 2 stealth cards, and you're having huge effects. I don't know that anything else would really be consistent with when you're playing 50% master cards or whatever the ratios are.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and to your point, I would agree, and I think that both sides kind of have like the version that I built with Anson, and then the girls' version with Sibel. I think Sibel, has 2 drawbacks. One, she's a 10 cap instead of an 8, so possibly 3 turns, maybe even 4 to get out. She doesn't have a title, and she's infernal, but she's got that built-in +2 bleed that you're only paying for if it's successful, so I'm into that. And then Anson, of course, on the other side, he doesn't have Obfuscate, so you got to kind of build a bear minion there, but he's got the Prince title, so you can play with some of the Prince fun stuff. Also, I think Bram mentioned Rumors of Gehenna, so even though you have the votes, the Rumors doesn't stack with Anson, so you're kind of in that pitfall where you have access to this potentially good thing, but you can't really leverage it.
Yeah, but then I go like non-political, which is also a possibility. But then you're like, in a way, making a bit wacky decks that sometimes work or not.
Well, she can get the title, right? She can get the Colo title for free as an action modifier.
Yeah, sure. And there is a couple of good princes too as backup with presence. But in the beginning of the year, I worked a lot on a key acid stealth bleed with Eisenway as key vampire, and like ranging from 9 till 18 Ashurs and liquidation and whatever. And then there was a tournament, and I took it, and I did 0, 0, 0 with Eisenway and Ashur stealth bleed deck.
And when I used to play Magic a lot, we would have like a bad showing. We used to call that O2 drop, because if you just show up and you lose your first 2 rounds, then you just go home.
See you later, guys.
But now I think just for a second, let's address really the most important issue here. On these 4 minions, who has the best art?
Who has the best art?
The best art.
It's probably Sybil, right? I'd say my vote's for Sybil. What about you, Bram?
That's a tough pick. Somehow I like Eisenway and ET phone home.
Sure. I don't know anything about the Kiasid like story. Like I haven't read anything about their bloodline, so I'm not sure why he's got an alien head. Do you have any story reason?
They look like aliens.
Do they all look like that?
Yeah, they're like they have fairy vampire blood or something, and they're super tall and skinny, and they look like ETs. That's just how it is.
Gotcha.
I mean, I feel like I do like Sibel because it looks like she's wearing like a bug shell for a hat.
Mm-hmm.
But I like Anson because his tongue is impressive.
Yeah, he's got super long tongue. It's craziness, and no pupils.
That's true. Yeah.
White eyes. Why not? All right. So let's close this down.
Can I do one last remark?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think we kind of focused a lot on Sibel, but for example, I played some Anson gun decks too, and like Martin Weimeyer and stuff. He also did Anson guns or Marius or something, and I mean, it's you play a lot of Ashur and you cycle a lot of cards with Infernal Pursuits and whatever, but it's a very hard deck to like do game wins with, I think. So even if you play Anson, Parton, and Ashur, it's like you can build good decks, but I think if you see Weenie Dominate or Chiacid Stell Bleed or any decent Malkavian Bleed deck, Antitribus or 94, or I mean, and then you face a top dog, and then you face there is like plenty of very good decks, and I don't see how it's overpowered personally.
Sure. I mean, in the Anson gun variant is one that I've tried, and I agree it's a lot harder than just stealth bleeding to win. And like, I think one of the huge benefits that the Sybil version has that isn't on this page is the Oxinia. Using those master cards and dumping them for the bounce is such a huge thing, and it's once per turn, so you can bounced bleeds, and there's a lot of utility there that you're not seeing on the sheet that we have in front of us when it comes to that deck archetype. But yeah, I mean, the Anson deck, you lose that. You're focusing a little more on combat, so you're not even getting, once you do have a viable minion phase, you're not really getting the huge burst of bleed and pressure that you can get with Sybil. But to your point, the Isenwayan deck, I played a version that Jeff and I kind of co-opted for North American Championships Day 1, and I won 2 games straight up. It ran so well. In the third game, I was really close to a third game win, and then I get in the finals, and I just had the clunkiest, slowest draw. I didn't get Isenwayan, I didn't get a Parthenon, and I just had master cards. I'm just sitting here with master cards and minions, and then I got Dominate behind me, so I'm looking for deflections. Just kind of like, what's my purpose of being here? How do I go forward?
And then you play a deck, or you face a deck that plays like Infernal Pursuit and more Ashurs, and you don't do shit, and you cannot even use the Ashurs. Well, you can play them, but they won't. I mean, it's a trick to it's a gamble to play Ashur in a way. And if you play Sibel 1821 Ashurs, it's not a gamble, but again, it takes so much space in your deck that it what's the word? That your minion phase is different. And the thing is, the way Martin Schumacher used to play it is like you just sit there and you bring out Spell, and you sit there and then you bring out Axinia, and then you have a third minion, and then you start bleeding, and then it becomes like really difficult. But if people would like see Sibel, they should like realize what the deck does and act accordingly, I think.
Yeah.
But the thing I think in Vitas, what happens a lot is people are like focused on their decks and their VP, and like not look at the table and the very near future of that table, which is hard. I mean, I'm way too often I'm sitting at a table and I look and I'm in a crappy position and I just don't know what to do. I mean, it's hard to sometimes like find a path to some VPs or whatever. But yeah.
No, I get you. So, Jeff, I'm going to ask you first. So the bottom line here: does Asher's need to change? And if we look at this package of things, the multiple master phases, liquidation, Asher's, or any part of this, do we need to address that, or does Black Chantry? Do you think they have an opportunity to address that? And if you do think so, how would you change it? What are some changes you would make?
Well, honestly, my opinion has changed somewhat, just from talking to Bram.
Yeah.
I'm less negative about it, because that's what happens when you talk to people, right? You just change your opinion a little bit. But I don't think Asher's itself is a problem. I don't really see anything about that concerns me. If I had to pick one, I think Liquidation's just way off base. Doesn't make any sense to me. I've never really understood the multiple master phases in the game. When I stopped playing, I don't know the exact chronology, but around that time, people were playing like the Anson only the Anson master phase, like Anarch Revolt deck. But you know what I mean?
It was before they changed
didn't
it, right?
Take actions. They just like tap him and go Conda, and if you torp him, they go Conda him, and they just keep making him. And it was just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, I'm like, who that one dude from Cincinnati was playing it, and I'm just like, why are you doing this? Like, we wanted to play Vampire, and you're just like jerking off. No, go ahead.
I get it, but I mean, there is first it was Pentex, now it's like Asher Liquidation. Some people like find Imbued very annoying. I find them annoying too, but I'm not in favor of like banning them or whatever. They can, they can exist. I mean, there's some events that are like really nasty or whatever. But the thing is that you pick a card, you pick a deck strategy, and by doing this, you cannot do this, and this. So it's always like some kind of pick, and the more cards Black Chantry produces, I think the harder it's gonna get to like pick
have
the right
bases covered
in a way. Because there is more tech to like counter decks or whatever. So I think it's becoming harder to do like a decent result or a good result like every time with a deck.
Well, yeah, I think the old version, like what was that, like 15 years ago that people were doing the Anarch Revolt decks?
It was like right before they changed the Anarch Revolt rules.
Yeah, it was something like that. I mean, that deck was really dumb because they didn't even take actions. At least now you have to, if you want to oust somebody, you're going to have to do something in your minion phase. So it's better by orders of magnitude. But I feel like Liquidation's a little out of line. And I get what you're saying. You don't want to, like the slippery slope type of thing, you don't want them to just start banning or errating everything, because that gets kind of dumb.
Yeah. In a way, personally, I think like Legionnaires or something are also pretty broken. It's a new card, so I don't expect them to like ban them anytime soon. But I mean, if you look at last year, how many tournaments are won with Legionnaires, it's pretty. They're just pretty insane. They're like, you pay one pool, you have one, and then they're free with Liquidation. So, there is always cards that are like,
again,
seem very strong, but then that's what I try to do. I try to pick a stupid card everybody ignores, And if you take one card and you play it like 12 or 15 times, like you would play 12 or 15 Ashurs, it also becomes like ridiculously strong. I mean, I made a computer hacking flash grenade deck. You play like 12, 15 flash grenades that nobody pays attention to, and then it becomes like super annoying, and then people get angry because you play one caps doing annoying stuff. So you can take a lot of cards and abuse them if you use like big quantity.
I understand what you're saying. What I guess I would have 2 points. The first one is that with Emerald Legionnaires, liquidation again is really an enabler. So doing something about liquidation would probably impact both of these decks. You can decide for yourself if that would be a positive impact or negative or value neutral. And second, in terms of nerfing Emerald Legionnaire, I think if anything, since Ben made it and he seems really proud of it, I think he would probably just make it like gain you pool, or like give him like a 5 bleed. That would be like how he would nerf it. This is a joke.
This is a joke for people at home. This is a joke.
Yeah. We were making, when Ben was in, he was in the Columbus area a while ago,
sure,
maybe even a year ago now, for a tournament. We were pretty much saying stuff like that to him, that like, oh, you're gonna have to give him more health. This card works against him. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just having fun.
Yeah. Well, back to your earlier point, Bram, when you're talking about the change to Pentex. I don't know how I feel about it entirely, but my biggest problem with the card was that the answer to Pentex was to play Pentex yourself. And I don't think the idea, like, that was my biggest problem, was the creative space when building decks was limited, because you have to assume that everyone's playing Pentex, so then you yourself have to play it. And I feel like Asher Tablets kind of fits in that too, because like the best answer to Asher Tablets is to play your own and hopefully outrace them and shut other people's down. I mean, maybe not the best answer, but it is a viable answer to that problem. But at the same time, I don't think Asher's is that big of a problem. I think master phases are probably what I would focus on, and liquidation to a smaller degree. But
if you take that road and you start sitting at tables and 3 out of 5 players starting playing Ashur, well, then the problem is solved too, because then you won't do Ashur round after Ashur round after Ashur round. Then you'll have to talk about it, or sometimes lose the Ashur race and whatever, and then less people will build Ashur decks, and then it's I think it's like a flow, a bit of a flow, and yeah, it will. I don't see the problem in it. If people play more Ashurs, it becomes problematic. If you sit at a table with multiple Ashur decks, and then people are gonna stop building Ashur decks or something.
Makes sense. All right. Well, I think we've talked this through. I appreciate you entertaining my my interests here and having a reasonable discussion. And so I know I asked you to send me over a fun deck, an effective deck here with that kind of features Asher Tablets, and you sent me this that makes me cry inside. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Well, first of all, to me this is perfect, because when I think of Bram, I think Asher's, Sewer Lids, and Hermanas, because he just, it's just how I feel.
I like to try cards that, like, I mean, in a way they're like super good. It's a 2-cap with 2 skills. They kind of have a minor point of losing their blood, so they become nearly impossible to play. And then I still like Jihad cards, like the first expansion ever. I think if you do a draft, or if you carefully look at the cards, I think they're still, I like them a lot. And Throne Surlit or Throne Gates, I have like both versions, several versions of Hermana with Throne Gates or Surlits. And then I try to like mix them. But the thing is, for example, you play the Hermana and I play them with the Surlits, and I play Rush, and yeah, the combat is Surlit. But you need a maneuver, you need a Surlit, and then, for example, behind you somebody plays Lutz. If you want to put down Lutz, you need a Rush. You need, if it gets blocked or whatever, you need a maneuver. Then you need a Surlit, which has a press. But then you need another 3 rounds of Surlit, and a Lutz deck probably is going to have like a Mental Maze or a Majesty, and then you can like start over. So the amount of cards that you like need to cycle to put like a big cap down, if you succeed, is like really excessive. I mean, I think I play 9 Surlits in the deck. I mean, that puts like not a lot of stuff down. So if I'm not able in this deck to like play a round of Asher to get combat cards back, I'm just stuck with hopefully 6 Hermana on the table, bleeding and hitting for 1.
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of see your thoughts on the point here that Asher's plays, and I'm hearing kind of that there, but I wanted to also tell you how much I enjoyed the Hungry Coyote and the Life in the City. I think are really great ads, of course, to get those Hermanas working a little bit sooner.
It's to make the deck work fast.
But, so, I mean, what I'm hearing from you is that the Asher tablets allow you to bring that combat back and then continue to apply that pressure, right?
I mean, if you play a combat ends deck, you can discuss that this is like a bad strategy, I know. But in a way, it's fun to try to play Hermana and whatever. But if somebody plays a combat ends deck, I mean, you play like, what, 6, 8? I have decks that run like 12, 13 combat ends. I mean, with 9 Surlits, you just get nowhere.
Yeah,
against like that.
Yep, that makes sense to me. So, all right. So, what are your like highlights? What are your favorite parts of this deck, and why do you think it's one you enjoy playing so much?
Well, the Achilles heel is of course a nice addition to the deck. Since it came out, I kind of had it before the deck, but that's like a really nice addition. I like that card a lot. And yeah, the highlights. I mean, Gramble is. I mean, because I play Ashur, I cannot play effective management for crypt acceleration. Oh well, to draw my extra Hermanas. So you have to figure something out, and then Gramble allows you to like take a vampire from your crypt that's already in play and put it in your uncontrolled region. So that's like a bit my effective management. It's an action, it costs a pool, so it's a bit clumsy in a way, but it helps speed up the deck a bit. And you hope, I mean, there are 2 caps, so you hope you can spare the action, I think.
Plus, there's some versatility that maybe you could get something else with it.
Yeah, you can get a Pugnant Knight maybe if you really need one or whatever. But for example, also there's like 5 Pugnant Knight and how many rushes? Bums rush?
4 bums rush.
4. So that's like 9 rush in total. Yeah. In my experience, 9 rushes are not gonna cut it, especially if you don't do grapple or cancel any other combat cards. So you just need those again to have like, maybe it's good for to take out 1 player or maybe 2 if they're like really not playing any defensive cards. But I mean, if you want to have a shot at multiple players and multiple VPs, you just need to like cycle the rushes and the combat back, or you're not gonna have enough cards.
That makes sense to me. So just the uncoiling here is for the to blow up Enochians, Scourge of the Enochians.
Yeah, that's one is not a lot, but I mean, yeah, you cannot put 5. I always gamble a bit. I think Vitas is a bit of a gamble. So yeah, 1 uncoiling, 1 heart. I mean, you need some luck.
Yeah, makes sense. And then I guess the only other thing I really wanted to point out was that I see you went with Poison Pill instead of Delay. What's your thought process when you compare those two cards and the function that they play?
I started to play a lot of Poison Pills because they're free. If you play small caps, 1 caps, 2 caps, 1 blood is a lot. To start with, if you delay a vote, there is a lot of chance that next turn you're just taking the damage anyway. And yeah, I mean, you can hope to delay it and then rush a vampire into torpor, or have some pool gain with 2-3 tributes of the master in the deck.
Yeah, there's 3 of them in there.
You know you're just gonna take some damage, and the thing is, the main reason that you play Poison Pill, in my opinion, is in weenie decks with a lot of minions, you fear Anchilla and what's the other one?
Uprising. And Disputed Territory, too. Or not Disputed Territory.
Disputed Territory.
Domain Challenge, that's what it is.
And I had some votes just voted down by the guy doing the Anchilla because, taking 6 or 9 pull damage or whatever is just too much, because, you take your own minions also in account, so then the pull damage becomes huge and the vote just goes away.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bram, I appreciate you hanging out, and you're welcome to stay with us for this last part. I know I didn't give you a lot of heads up here. Thank you for sharing this. Is it okay if I post this in the comments so people can play it if they want?
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate all your insight today. And if you want to make fun of me, Jeff, are you still with us?
I am.
So, Jeff, I want you to remind me what you put. So we do this thing, or we're doing an idea would be to do Iron Deck Builder. So we would come up with these very specific things that we'd want to put in a deck, and then the goal would be to make a deck that best fit that criteria. So, Jeff, do you remember what the criteria was that you gave to me last week?
I wanted you to use... Is his name Uriel?
Yeah, Uriel, I think.
I wanted you to use him and try to use his ability to have the other guy play with an open hand in combination with the Deathseeker.
Deathseeker, yeah.
Yeah, so that you could make an informed decision on what to cancel rather than just, willy-nilly canceling whatever. Just wanted to see how far you could take that strategy, or how good or how bad that was, basically.
Well, yeah, I don't think it was a bad deck-building challenge. I think an 8-cap, he's a bishop. He's got all-in clans at Superior. He's got some out-of-clan maybe you could play with there. I chose not to. But he also pairs up with Castile, who is my favorite addition to the Salubri Anti because he can bring in the weapon from your hand, as long as he doesn't have one already. So if he's in combat, does not have a melee weapon, 4 range is determined, you can equip one from your hand. So that makes bringing in these Blades of Bologna a lot easier. So my thought was I'm going to use that in conjunction with the Communal Haven Cathedral, kind of look through here to kind of move things around, make the Tiny Brothers in Arms and Hungry Coyote to get some blood moving around, so you can use that with the Blood Dolls and the Communal Haven. It's all going to work together, right? Well, so I played this deck a few times, and I made some really bad choices, and I think the first and foremost is trying to lean on Blade of Bologna. or Blade of Bologna, I guess. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm pretty terrible.
Probably Bologna.
Bologna, that makes sense.
Probably. It's the sword that's given to Perseus, right?
I don't. Do you think I'm smart, Jeff? This isn't how this works. But yeah, it's got the maneuver. It's got +1 damage. So it's a strong equipment. And then I kind of wanted to keep my reactions light, to just bounce, and then using Hide the Heart to either reduce or to make people burn blood. It's really good against allies specifically, since they can't burn a blood. It causes the action to fail. So that's the direction I went with the deck. And after playing it, I lost to basically everything, which is just like, it's a pretty good baseline, right? Where you're like, well, what do I lose to? A lot of people think vampire, rock, paper, scissors.
You were the fourth thing.
Yeah, I was the fourth thing that loses to everything.
You were shit.
Yes.
Loses to rock, paper, and scissors.
That's right. So good combat beat me. Vote and bleed decks beat me. You name it, and I was up against it. So I think one thing I learned is to probably not try and do huge amounts of damage. I think so. One of the mistakes I made was to use Blessed Blade, and I think I'm actually missing a copy. So I think I had 3 copies in there. Maybe bring it down to 2, maybe even 1. But I think if I were to go back and do this again, I would lean more on Weighted Walking Stick, and then do the Blessed Blade combo. So looking for just Weighted Walking Stick with ag damage, because I'm looking at their hand and I can tell if it's worth playing it. So using that, or I guess it's sort of the advantage, or sort of the righteous. Sorry, yeah. So you get the prevention and the aggravated damage. But then we would know when to play it, because we're able to see their hand to make that determination. So I think leaning on that and Weighted Walking Stick is probably a little more advantageous and less clunky than the blade, the concealed weapon, and the gift. I think it's still worth playing a few of these blades.
Isn't there something that blows your weapon up and does ag that you can play later on? I don't know all their cards. Isn't there something like that?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure there is.
That would work well with Walking Stick.
Yeah, someone out here is watching and they're like, "What are you guys doing? You don't know these cards?" No, yeah, I think there is. I don't either. Who plays this stuff? Oh man.
I remember 2 games that I played on Lucky, and I cannot remember whose deck it was, but also Salubri, and he played Eye of Unforgiven Heaven or something. Or what is the card? The one that does 2 ranged aggravated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a bitch to play against. That was a really hard deck to play against. I mean, that with canceling combat cards is, yeah.
Well, and it really messes up retainers too, which is pretty cool. I'm into anything that just has the side effect, like the weather control, blowing up Raven Spies and stuff. That's just really neat. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of misses, and I think that's one thing that's really fun about having these deck building challenges is it makes you look at cards you wouldn't play normally, look for synergy within cards, and then do your best to put it into a deck. Now, I think I missed the mark, but I think there was a lot to learn from that. What do I want to use if I were to continue? What should I focus on? I kept the deck around 75 cards, and I think I could trim it back a little more and focus again on the ag with the Weighted Walking Stick and maybe a few of the blades. And then being able to see their hand, you just really push it right in with the Death Seeker to make sure that you land those. So, Jeff, I appreciate the input. Do you have anything to take away from this other than watching me fail several times?
Well, that's reward enough. Yeah, I mean, similar things happen. Whenever I try to build a Salubri Anti Deck, the combat package just always winds up looking clunky, and I'm not very happy with it. I was thinking of, since Communal Haven Cathedral is non-unique and not terrible when combined with, Hungry Coyote or, I don't know, Life in the City, who knows. I considered Castiel plus multiple copies of that, and running like no concealed, and just move my stuff around. But I haven't done it yet. But I felt like maybe that would help improve the clunkiness of the combat. Because you need a weapon, you need a way to get the weapon on the guy, and then your combat cards require the weapon. So it all just seems crappy.
Yeah.
There's another monster card, a trifle one, not that.
Not, yeah.
Also to like rearrange your.
Yeah, you could work that in too. You could have some of the communal cathedral, and then a couple of those, so that you're not like stuck with more cathedrals than you want.
And I would play power card, but I mean in this deck it makes sense since you have like a couple of combat cards and whatever. But I would play a heart to like maybe cycle some cards you don't need back to the bottom of your deck since you're not playing Ashers.
Yeah. No, I like that smirk. Thank you. Well, there was one thing I said to Jeff was like, this is one deck that I think could benefit from it, and I could trim it down and get to between 60 and 65 cards and still move things back in. But we'll see. We'll see if I can come up with something better. Hopefully, I'll have a deck building challenge that will make Jeff look silly too, and I can watch him fail on Lackey.
I do that myself.
You just challenge yourself to fail. I like it.
I'm just gonna build shitty decks just forever.
Well, yeah.
Somebody is suggesting somebody being Jorge, dagger plus Sword of Righteous.
Oh, let me look at that. Let's pull a dagger real quick.
You get to make like 2.
Yeah, well, it does more with 2. You throw them, right? I thought you threw them.
Yeah, that allows you to do the ranged damage if you have to.
Oh, okay.
That's some creative thinking.
That is. So you can put a second dagger from your hand or ash heap on this minion when they equip the dagger from your hand. Damage on Kia said by this weapon is aggravated. +1 damage.
And you can cancel their prevention, presumably, because you see their hand, and you're potentially able to offset the downside of it.
With the Death Seeker, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not a terrible idea.
No, it's actually, that's pretty smart. Well, thanks to, who'd you say it was? Jorge?
Jorge. He's a really good player.
Yeah, it sounds that way. I like it.
He beat me too many times. It's not like him.
We'll put some salt on it. Zip.
I just try to win with bad personalities so that people don't want to play.
Oh, that's good. You're like, people just don't like me personally, and that's enough to win the game. Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. We're way over time, but I appreciate you guys. Bram, thank you for taking the time, man. We appreciate the insight. Yeah. Anytime. Hopefully we'll see you again in, I don't know, in the future, if you're up for it. But until then, Jeff, thank you, sir, as always.
Yep.
All right. Jeff's excited. All right, guys.
See you.
Yeah, see you guys later. Have a good one. And, hey, the struggle may be eternal, but we're getting you out of here in an hour and a half. That's good enough. All right. Thank you guys very much, and have a good one.
Okay.